Welcome to The Explainer. In this show, we take incredibly complex research and break it down into a story that makes sense. So let's start with a question. How do you actually map a hidden world? I mean, think about it. A world with no borders, no physical landmarks, a world that's designed to be untraceable. Well, today, we're going to follow the trail of one researcher who spent over a decade doing exactly that. Our guide for this is the massive body of work from cybercrime expert Dancho Danchev. We're diving into his public blog posts, his research, his archives, all of it, to understand how he was able to connect the dots and show us the hidden architecture of a global criminal enterprise. All right, let's get into it. A digital detective's work. So where did an investigation like this even begin? Well, it wasn't with a single crime. It was with a whole collection of digital threats that, at first glance, seems to have nothing to do with each other. I mean, just look at this list from his early work in the mid-2000s. It's kind of all over the place, right? He was writing about vulnerabilities in industrial control systems, the use of hidden messages by terrorist groups, massive botnet attacks. He was covering a huge amount of ground. But here's the thing. While most people saw these as just a bunch of separate, isolated incidents, he saw something else. He saw the connections. He actually wrote, and I'm quoting here, that it's the common pattern that leads to the exposure of the entire ecosystem. He realized these weren't just random attacks. Nope, they were symptoms of something much, much bigger. And that insight, that was the key. It let him stop chasing down individual fires and start, actually drawing a map of this entire hidden economy. What's so powerful about seeing it like this is how it totally flips the script. We're not talking about some lone hacker in a dark basement anymore, and not even close. This is a global network. It's got its own infrastructure, its own suppliers, even its own customers. This is the cybercrime ecosystem he was starting to reveal. And by 2010, his work was painting this stunningly clear picture of a mature industry. He was tracking specific botnet infrastructures like Avalanche, he was dissecting the business models of malware gangs like Kubeface, and he was exposing these off-the-shelf crimeware kits like Zeus that basically made it easy for anyone to become a cybercriminal. And this gets us right to the next crucial point, the business of crime. Because this wasn't just a crime anymore. It had gone pro. It had become a full-blown business. And its product was crime as a service. This was an absolute game changer. Danchev's research profiled the rise of malware as a service. Think of it like a SaaS company, but for evil. You didn't have to be some master coder anymore. You could just rent access to a botnet, buy a ransomware kit, or subscribe to a phishing service. It totally lowered the barrier to entry, and the industry just exploded. Okay, but running a criminal business is one thing. How do you get paid? Right? Turning all that digital loot into actual spendable cash without getting caught, that's the real challenge. And following that question led him to uncover one of the most critical parts of the whole system, the money laundering pipeline. Just take a look at this. It seems legit, right? Looks like any other standard kind of boring corporate finance website. Well, it's 100% fake. Danchev exposed entire networks of these front companies, and their only purpose was to recruit people they called money mules to move the stolen money for them. And the process was deviously simple. They'd post fake work-from-home jobs on real job sites, they'd hire someone, and that new employee's job was to receive client payments into their own personal bank account. Then they were told to wire that money overseas, usually through a service like Western Union, and they could keep a small commission. You see what's happening? The mule is taking all the legal risk, creating this perfect human firewall that makes it nearly impossible to trace the money back to the real criminal. But this ecosystem Danchev was mapping, it wasn't just about making money. And this is where it gets even more complex. What he found was that the very same tools, the same infrastructure, were being used for totally different, often ideological reasons. His research showed this fascinating split in motivation. On one side, you have criminals who are purely in it for the cash. But on the other, you have a whole different set of players, hacktivists, state-sponsored spies, terrorist organizations, and they're using the exact same tactics, DDoS attacks, website defacements, but not for profit. They're doing it to push a political or ideological agenda. And Danchev was right there on the digital front lines documenting how real-world geopolitical conflicts were spilling online. We're talking about cyber battles between pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian groups, analyzing attacks during the Russia-Georgia war, and even detailing specific encryption tools like Mujahideen Secrets 2 that were designed for jihadist groups to communicate securely. Now, as you can probably guess, mapping a world populated by criminals, spies, and extremists, it is not a safe job. This research wasn't just academic, it had dangerous, real-world consequences. In late 2010, right at the peak of his work exposing these huge, multi-million-dollar cybercrime rings, Dancho Danchev just went silent. His blog stopped, emails went unanswered, and then headlines like this one started popping up all over the tech world. It took years for the full story to come out, but Danchev himself eventually described what happened as a successful kidnapping and harassment attempt, leading to a ruined career. His work wasn't just data on a screen. It was a real threat to powerful criminal interests, and they struck back. Hard. So, when we look back at this whole journey, from those early scattered blog posts to his disappearance and what he uncovered, what does it all teach us about the world that Danchev mapped? He showed us, post by post, connection by connection, that cybercrime isn't a collection of random events. It is a persistent, adaptable, and deeply rooted global ecosystem. It has its own economy, its own infrastructure, its own conflicts, and it's constantly evolving. Dancho Danchev's work gave us a map, but the ecosystem he exposed is still out there, operating in the shadows, growing and changing every single day. His research really laid the groundwork, but it leaves us with a vital question. Who's continuing the work of watching this hidden world?